We're starting with something not that hidden in Act 1. Sentinels are present where civilization and history thrive. Huanglong itself is made out of 1 court and 6 cities. Each city has its own sentinel. The harder you win at civilization, the more sentinels you get to have. Though it is said that all of these sentinels used to be one entity. Only once are the sentinels called oracle engines. An oracle is a person or thing considered to provide insight, wise counsel, or prophetic predictions. So already, sentinels are strongly implied to tell the future. Now clearly, they don't give their prophecies willy-nilly. Even their appointed resonator, the magistrate, does not appear omniscient. That is why I think sentinels 100% have their own agenda in being a guardian and guide towards civilization. The visual direction of the sentinel is also reflective of the nation under its domain. Huanglong gets the dragon-looking sentinels, while other nations have forms that are, quote, hard to imagine. Another curious find is a tablet discovered in a little corner of the statue. This is a good time to shout out Narushio, whose footage this all belongs to, and to whom I would like to say a special thank you for giving me permission to use their footage. Returning to this curious tablet, it tells us about moar stone, the main construction material used for city building, road paving, and the sculpting of the Sentinel Jue statue. Apparently, this material can only be found in the Gorges of Spirit. A second tablet lying on the ground tells us there was a construction detail recently, drilling a path through the Gorges of Spirits to reach the inner regions of Huanglong. So hopefully, in the future, this becomes the opening to a path connecting two adjacent regions. After the Crownless was defeated, the rover involuntarily absorbed the reverberations of the Crownless. There are 2 components I need to go over. 1, the world being made of frequencies, and 2, the Panggu terminal and the excerpt from the comprehensive mirror for historians. We know from Kuro's promo material, Wuthering Waves is a world revolving around sound. The narrative of everything being made of frequencies is what the lore needs to establish a connection between everything natural and everything disfigured. It serves as an all-encompassing unifying plot device. For instance, resonators can only use the frequency they resonate with as their power, and quite a few of the current roster have actually contaminated frequencies. This may implicate their powers are weaker for it, but at the same time it sets up a story reason to design variants of the same character. The idea that everything is unified under one beautiful framework is actually a concept that has been proposed in the form of string theory. More specifically, superstring theory is an attempt to explain all of the particles and fundamental forces of nature by modeling it as vibrations of strings. After all, what is a frequency if not a really long string? But disappointingly, the parallels between Wuthering Waves and string theory end at the surface level. Do not read too much into it, you will end up tangling your own mind. Or do, I'm not your mother. The new name of our gourd, the Panggu terminal, is named after a real mythological entity. The actual legend of Panggu has no real import on the game's lore to speak of, since there has already been some creative liberties taken when adapting this myth. Exploring this game's Panggu brings me to the excerpt from the comprehensive mirror for historians. A celestial being descended, commanding the universe's boundless power. Assuming mortal form, they condensed the primordial essence, creating Panguo. Cleaving heaven and earth apart, they aligned the longitudes and latitudes, declared the 4 cardinal directions. Then Huanglong's history began, establishing court and city. Now, this quote suffers a bit from the shortfalls of the Chinese to English translation. For context, this quote was brought up right after the Rover absorbed the Crownless, and Baizi comments, there is technically a precedent for human bodies absorbing fallen reverberations. Let me single this part out. Assuming mortal form and compare it to its original text, 纳骸余生. The literal meaning is to take in bones into their body, but that's a little awkward. There's actually a double meaning here. One is to form a traditional skeleton into their own body, which might be analogous with assuming a mortal form, turning yourself human. And the other meaning comes from what we call the echoes in Chinese, 声骸, sound skeleton, which, as you can see, has a character in common with the quote earlier. So with this newfound context, the excerpt suddenly sounds a lot more familiar. This mysterious entity absorbed the echo into their body, creating Panguo, and set the natural laws of the earth. And now hopefully you can agree with me in saying that the celestial being that is described here is probably referring to the Rover. I hope this helps explain, at least a little bit, why everyone is bending over backwards for the Rover. So now we skip all the way to the last part. Rover had just been welcomed by Sanhua, accepted the 4 tokens from the magistrate, and now they're trying to investigate by asking for help from the researchers at Huaxi Institute. First, they mention the sexagenary cycle, or the branches and stems system. Basically, the way time is being kept in Huanglong is a little weird. You still have 365 days or 12 months for a year, but they no longer say it has been 160 years after the lament, like they did in CBT 1. Nowadays, they follow an ancient Chinese timekeeping method, describing their current year with a special name corresponding to one of the 12 animal zodiacs, like the year of Wei, corresponding to the year of the goat. The people of Huanglong are fun like that. Additionally, Huanglong does not have centuries, they instead have cycles, which are 60 years long. This is how far Kuro Game's going to write China into their world building. I also discovered that the text logs that appear in this main story mission are all blank, maybe due to the localization process being incomplete. But it turns out, these text files in the original Chinese reinforce the theme of our main character heavily, so they're kinda important to get into. The first log is about Jingzhou's first resonator, maybe even ever, but I don't know. The exact time of this report has been redacted, except we know that it was a year of Wei, but that doesn't narrow it down much. We don't know how long this person has been a resonator, and they are unable to recount anything to do with their awakening. They resonate fairly well with several different frequencies, unable to confirm origin of resonance, and were diagnosed as a congenital resonator. If you don't read the profiles of characters in-game, that means they were probably born with their power. This resonator has golden eyes that shine even brighter when using their resonance. Their victory against the Crownless in the Battle of the Gorges of Spirit gave the necessary momentum to achieve victory in this battle, and for Jingzhou to be founded. During this battle, multiple soldier eyewitnesses testify that the Sentinel Jue descended and stood side by side with this resonator. So based on the context surrounding this video, do you have any guesses on who this is? Let's move on. This next text file is about a pandemic that infected 6-year-olds and younger 20 years ago. Highly contagious, symptoms included irregular muscle shriveling, severe limb pain, and fever. Development of the first-gen vaccines were headed by Xiang Liyi, who was also one of the testing phase trial subjects after it had passed phase 3 clinical trials. Principal Inspector Xiang Liyao is this researcher's son, who was also one of the trial subjects. A TD outbreak approached Jingzhou soon after, resulting in the difficulty of vaccine transportation. In response, a second-generation live attenuated vaccine, an orally administered sugar pearl, was developed. This vaccine trumps the first gen in storage requirements, transport difficulty, and ease of administering to children. Still, the transport lines were rife with danger, and only one medical courier team safely arrived where they needed to be. The resonator that escorted this team, in the author's hindsight, resembled the subject of the report of the first resonator article. So that was the lore I wanted to talk about for this first video after 9 months. I do want to make more videos, but I'm kind of busy nowadays. I'll just make bite-sized stuff like this from now on maybe, and if I want to get more into it, I'll let you know. I think I've already overstayed my welcome. Thank you for watching.